Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. So we will move on to the meeting. We have apologies from Councillor Josh Suman, and Councillor David Brown will be substituting. Welcome, David. I would like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and the press who are watching the live stream of this meeting via the Combined Authorities website. Due to the government guidance on social distancing, this meeting is being held remotely in accordance with the Meetings Regulation 2020. The software allows you to choose a name when you join the meeting. To members of the public, if you do not want to be identifiable, please choose a pseudonym. A decision of summary and minutes of the meeting will be produced in the usual way, and a recording of the meeting will be available to view on the meeting page of the Combined Authorities website. To enable the meeting to run in an orderly manner, I would like to ask all members of the committee to keep their video camera switched on for the duration of the meeting and to keep their microphone muted except when I invite them to speak. Officers will join us to introduce their reports in the usual way. Any members wishing to ask questions or make comments should indicate this by clicking the raised hand function on the right hand side of their screen. When I invite you to speak, please unmute your microphone, ask your question, and then mute it again to allow the officer to respond. As with all new arrangements, especially those involved in new systems, there will always be a risk that we may run into technical problems, and I would ask for your patience if we do. I would remind members and officers that all virtual meetings will be recorded.
Councillor Van der Veer has his hand up.
Yeah, just in apologies, you didn't mention that Ian Bates Councillor Bates was not present, and I would guess that Councillor Howell is substituting for him. I just wanted to clarify that.
Well, Councillor Van der Veer, you've just jumped the gun by about 2 seconds, because in my next line, I was going to say I would begin by calling the members of the committee to establish their presence, and please confirm by raising your hand or speaking. Before I do so, I would like to welcome Councillor Mark Howell. Morning, Mark, who has taken over from Councillor Bates as a representative from the County Council. Those in attendance, Councillor David Brown.
Here, and I'm substituting for Councillor Schumann.
Thank you, David. Councillor Peter Hiller.
In attendance, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Mark Howell.
Presence, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure you'd like to give your thanks to Councillor Bates, because I've now taken his position, so I will be now attending for the future. I'm not substituting for him, but thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Nikki Massey.
Present.
Councillor John Nish.
Present.
Councillor Chris Seaton.
Present.
Councillor Aidan Van der Veer.
Present.
And myself, James Palmer. And bear in mind the point that Councillor Howell has made. Councillor Bates, as long as I've been involved within politics in Cambridgeshire, I believe Councillor Bates has been involved in the Highways and Infrastructure Department of the County Council. That's at least 11 or 12 years or so. So he has given long service, and we thank him for his service and for his time on this committee. Does any member wish to declare disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interest? Please raise the hand function on the screen if you have anything to declare. Okay, so we go on to item 1.2, which is the minutes from the 4th of November. We're being asked to approve the minutes of the meeting on the 4th of November 2020 as a correct record. Can I ask if any member who does not agree with this proposal to click the raised hand function? Councillor Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one thing, on page 6, bullet point 7, there's an action there with regards to the report. I want to know, please, when is that report going to be published, or when can we see the report, please? That has implications with regards to further agenda items, but it's just the fact that I'm assuming we're supposed to have had it by now.
Okay, well, I'd like to bring the officer in for that particular question, please. Robert.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm just turning up the minutes now.
Just for your, it's page 6, and it's bullet point 7. It's the only action on the page, and the paragraph starts with regards to an environmental impact assessment, etc., etc.
I'm just looking, unfortunately. with regard. May I don't know if Mr. Rains knows the answer to that one. If not, it's something that I would have to ask Mayor if we could come back to members after this meeting digitally with.
It might be that this is something actually we would be able to pick up under the item that Simon Wright is presenting further down the agenda. I think that might be the place to pick that up if that's if Councillor Howell's happy with that.
I'm happy with that, but it does have an implication on that particular agenda item that we haven't seen that report. And I just think I want to make that clear from the outset, because that is quite a fundamental with regards to the report. But yep, happy for it to be discussed further, and you can have some time then to find out about the report. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor van der Veer.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, since Councillor Howell's raised it now, I mean, there was some discussion about this at the meeting, and so it's, I mean, surprising that this doesn't seem to have dropped off the radar to such an extent, I mean, it's going to make it very difficult to make a decision later on if we haven't had this information shared. I mean, there was a considerable amount of discussion about this at the last meeting, yeah. Just leave it there. I mean, a better explanation would be welcome.
I think Councillor van der Veer, as Paul Rains has mentioned, we will bring this up in the appropriate agenda item at the appropriate time. Councillor Massey.
I won't add anything else to what Councillor Howell and Councillor van der Weyer has already said, but I would third their comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. So we will bring that up at the appropriate time in the meeting with Mr. Wright. But on the basis of the recommendation of the minutes, are we, other than that, are we in favour of the minutes as written? Happy to sign off. Nobody indicating that we are not.
Mr. Chairman, just to say that I don't know if I'm allowed to because I wasn't present, so I may have to abstain on this one if you don't mind, please.
Well, that's okay. You certainly weren't present, Mr. Howell, Councillor Howell. So I'm not quite sure where you are on this, but it's difficult for you to abstain on something where you weren't present, or you vote on something you weren't present. So I appreciate that. So with the abstention of Councillor Howell, we will take all the minutes read, and we will now move on to the CA forward agenda plan, which we are asked to note, and public questions, of which there are none. So we move on to part 2, which is delivery, and we've got Gilla and Roberta who are going to introduce the report. But before they do, I will move to the question from Overdue and Scrutiny Committee. And please can the Democratic Services Officer read the question, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And the question is as follows. The budget report under the budget and performance update shows that 2,924,000 has been transferred to the Highways Authorities under the Capital Budget 3.5 for the active travel grant payments to the Highways Authorities. What is the split of the money between Cambridgeshire County Council and Peterborough City Council? Is it the CPCA's responsibility to report the detail of this spend to central government? And what updates have been received from Cambridgeshire County Council and Peterborough City Council about the details of the spend to date?
Okay, thank you very much. So responding to each point in turn, the split of the grant is Peterborough City Council £800,000 and Cambridgeshire County Council 2.142.4 million. Yes, number 2, yes, as the combined authority received the funding, it will be up to us to submit the required reporting per the monitoring and evaluation requirements and the grant funding requirements DFT. And 3, Peterborough City Council and Cambridgeshire County Council are currently undertaking feasibility of the schemes proposed in the original bid, and we await final viability, buildability and affordability in due course. Any members of the, so we then go back to Gilla and Roberta to introduce the report. Which one of you is going to go first?
I'll go first. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, members. So the purpose of this paper is to provide a update on the budget and performance. So starting off with the revenue projects, so these accounts are made up to the end of November. So we currently have 3 projects which have a variance against the budget. The A10 SOBC project, as we've mentioned before, is near to completion with a saving of approximately 100k. The A141 SOBC and the bus review implementation both have been approved by the board recently, and they'll be spent over the next between this year and the next financial year. So we'll propose that the money is transferred or carried forward into the following year. Moving down further to the capital side, we've got a list there of projects which have the variances. So starting off the A1260 Neen Parkway, junctions 15 and 32.3. Some delays with the FBC surveys. The A141, as mentioned above, is now being delivered by the CPCA and therefore moved to the revenue budget. The A505 corridor, pre-SOBC, again near to completion, so we're expecting a saving there. Coldham's Lane, as mentioned in the previous meeting, it's been agreed to put that on hold. Currently, the Ferngate Access Phase 1 SOBC stage has been completed with a saving of approximately 270,000, and the budget and forecast has been increased to continue the project and pursue the OBC stage. The Kings Dyke project currently progressing ahead of schedule, therefore the forecast has been increased to reflect this. However, we are expecting the project to be delivered on within the overall budget. And finally, moving on to the performance reporting, as Roberta's here to answer questions, but just to summarise all, there's an appendix attached, Appendix 1, which shows the transport performance dashboard, and it includes all the it shows the RAG status of each project. Currently, there are no reds, 3 ambers, and the remaining are all green status. So happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, questions, members? Mark Howell.
Thank you very much indeed. A couple of questions with regards to the budget. You see the, can you please confirm where we are with regards to the CAM outline business case, with regards to the current budget which is spent, which is I think 1.3 million and that, and can we have a breakdown of that please if possible? If not now, then can we have it please before the next meeting? Also, with regards to that, in paragraph 3.1, we've also got a 3.9 million spend there. That's a large amount of money, to say the least, a huge amount of money. Can I have some knowledge, please, on what that's been spent on? And again, a breakdown. And just a small aside question coming off the CAM for a sec. Later on, it says about the Coldham's Lane scheme. That sentence doesn't seem to make sense to me. Could somebody expand upon it, please? So just those 3 questions. Thank you.
Gillo.
Yep, thank you. So yes, in terms of the CAM project, so yes, so you see the CAM Metro within revenue, you'll see how much we've spent, 1.3 million on the OBC work, and then the line below shows how much we're currently spending on the delivery strategy, on the client side advisory, etc. There is a paper later on to expand and to give you to give an update on that project. And your second part, apologies, was referring to which projects?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's with regards to the Coldham's Lane scheme. But before we go off that, I don't think the the report later on outlines what that money's been actually been spent on with regards to the outline business case. So what my question really is, and if you don't mind, is where are we with the outline business case and when can we see it?
So, Mark, I think this is well advertised, and you know, the work on the outline business case begins in the spring or is completed at the end of the year. I think that we know how important this is to the overall scheme, and I think we have to remember, Mark, that the CAM is about the whole of Cambridgeshire, and the importance of the scheme to the future of this county is absolutely clear. So there's nothing that isn't transparent, Baron, and it will be discussed later. I know that you're new to the committee, so you're trying to catch up, and I appreciate that. And I know you're a little bit behind on the CAM stuff because of that. So, but I assure you that we will discuss that further.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much indeed for saying that. I have got a little bit of experience with this, and with regards to the CAM, since it affects my division probably more than anyone else's, I'm quite
I disagree.
Please don't patronise me, Mr. Mayor. It is not good to patronise me. I would not.
Sorry, Councillor Howe, respect for the chair, please. We need to keep an orderly committee. Sorry, Chair. Back to yourself. I think it sounds like the Mr. Hussein's answered the questions as far as possible and a supplementary.
Yeah.
But I have the outline with regards to Coldham's Lane. Then.
Sorry.
I think, Councillor Howe, I think the word of respect is there. Please give the officers time to reply. I will just say the CAM affects every part of Cambridgeshire. Your division is a small part of that, an important part, but a small part of that, and is no more important than any other part of Cambridgeshire. And each part of Cambridgeshire will be touched by the CAM. Julia, would you like to come in on the final point, please?
Yes, sorry, the Coldham's Lane, what is the question exactly? Sorry, Councillor.
Gilla, I think the word funding is missing from a sentence there. Further funding is if that helps, Councillor Howell there.
Okay, so I'll move on to Councillor Massey. Councillor Massey.
I was actually going to ask very similar questions to Councillor Howe, who I think, although he's new to the committee, I know that working with Councillor Howe in the past, he would have absolutely been reading up on this and would be up to date with everything. And so I think his questions are important, and we would like to have really full answers. And I imagine that maybe Councillor van der Weyer might have similar questions too.
Well, again, I'm at a loss. These things have been discussed at length and in detail many times. I'm not quite understand why members of the committee are not cited on this. They absolutely should be. This is a very transparent process. The CAM is a major project for Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. We've gone through it in major detail, and quite frankly, I can't quite understand why members aren't cited on these issues, which have been clearly and transparently discussed. Councillor van der Weyer.
Yep, I'll have another go if you like. Try and frame it differently and hopefully more constructively. With the OBC, there has been a certain amount of money spent, and this is clearly stated as being related to an OBC. Yet, as you just said, we are starting the OBC in April. So to have some more detail about what the 1.339 million was spent on, I think would be helpful, and I'm not aware of any other sources of greater breakdown. In relation to the one CAM, so this I would like sort of clarity about the numbers on the revenue budget and one CAM. To date, we have given one CAM £4 million, and we're expecting to have given them £6.9 million by the end of this financial year, within the next 3 months. And in addition, on the capital budget, there's the £2 million. So that's nearly £9 million we are expecting to have given to one CAM by the end of this year, and by the end of the next 3 months. So I think it's reasonable to ask, and again, I'm not aware of any other information in the public domain that details the sort of terms on which this money has been given, any reporting back, and then just generally information about what has been used for. So what information you can provide now would be extremely useful. And if you can't provide sort of full breakdowns on both of these items, then some information about when that could be done would be very helpful indeed.
Well, I think, again, Councillor Van der Veer, these things have been discussed at length. We can email you with further breakdowns if necessary. I think it's quite clear, we've been quite transparent on this. If you're going to deliver world-class infrastructure to the level of the CAM, you have to set yourself up appropriately. The Combined Authority has looked internationally and nationally at how you deliver major schemes. As we've said, we've seen examples of how not to do things in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. And we want to do things appropriately and in the right way, and making sure that we deliver appropriately in the right way across the whole of Cambridgeshire. So I will ask the officers to again give you that clear oversight that is already out there in the public domain. And I'm disappointed that you and one or two others haven't got that oversight, but it's there for you to see. But we will get back to you on that via email. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Just on CAM, as you're well aware, I'm keeping a close eye on it, making sure that we get some benefit out in East Cambridgeshire coming through my patch, but we'll leave that for another day. And I'd encourage people to make sure they know what's going on at the CAM Partnership Board as well. Coming back to the report as a whole, I'd just like to say I thought this was really encouraging, and I think people are clearly doing a good job. We've got a lot coming in under budget or around budget, which strikes me as, from my experience with these things, a good position to be in.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we've clearly had significant underspend the first years of the Combined Authority, but we're delivering on projects across the whole of Cambridgeshire. Cambridgeshire is a very large county. You will see from the agenda today that we are delivering in every part of Cambridgeshire on this agenda again, as we do on every single one. And it's disappointing to me that we spend so much time talking about a very small area of the county when we're delivering across the entirety of it. And with almost 1 million people in Cambridgeshire, we need to be mindful of the entire county at all times. And this budget is mindful of the entire county and is delivering major projects across the entirety of it. So, you know, I would hope that this committee will be less parochial and more outward in its thinking, as I believe most members certainly are. Any other comments on the budget, please? So we're asked to note the January budget and performance monitoring update. We will now move to the vote. I'm prepared to chair this, proposing the chair. Any seconder, please? Councillor Nish, and I'll go through one by one. Councillor Brown.
4.
Councillor Hiller.
4.
Councillor Howe.
4.
Councillor Massey.
4.
Councillor Nish. Councillor Nish, I can't. You're muted still, unfortunately.
Apologies, the unmute wouldn't go. 4.
Councillor Seaton.
4.
And Councillor Van der Veer.
4.
So that's, after all that, it's a unanimous vote. So that's good news. Thank you very much, officers, and thank you very much, members. So we'll go up to Peterborough. Item 2.2 is the A16 Norwood improvements. Can I ask Anna Graham to introduce the report, please?
Thank you. The purpose of the paper is to seek approval for the completed strategic outline business case for the A16 Norwood improvements, and to seek a recommendation to the Combined Authority Board for the drawdown of £630,000 from the medium-term financial plan to produce the outline business case. The Peterborough local plan identifies the need to deliver 19,440 new homes by 2036. The Norwood site and the adjacent Paston Reserve urban extension are expected to provide a total of 2,945 dwellings. The SOBC sets out the case for transport improvements in the A16 Norwood area. The SOBC concludes that a package of interventions is needed to improve congestion, safety and enable growth in the area. The package includes closure of the Newborough Road access onto the A47, dualling of the A16 between the A16 A47 Welland Road roundabout and the Norwood development access, signalisation of the A16 A47 roundabout on the A16 southbound approach, a 50-metre sort of flare added to the A47 westbound approach to provide additional capacity for left-turning traffic onto Welland Road, and a dedicated left turn lane from the A47 eastbound onto the A16 northbound. This package of works will be further developed at OBC. The SOBC reports that the package has a benefit cost ratio of 3.2, which demonstrates high value for money. The financial case estimates the construction cost at approximately 6,600,000, including a 20% risk allowance. Further work will be undertaken to refine the cost estimating further through the business case stages. The next phase of the project will be for the OBC to be undertaken to develop the recommended option further. This phase will also include a number of surveys and a public consultation to ensure that the full business case scope is better defined. An outline programme for the OBC and beyond is detailed in the paper. I commend this report to the committee.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna, and thank you for the report. Do we have any comments from members, please?
Yes, I'd like to comment if I might, Mr. Mayor.
Of course, Councillor Hiller, please carry on.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a point, really. I think this is a very good example of what you yourself were speaking about last year, Mr. Mayor. Peterborough getting the connectivity infrastructure in place before residential development happens, and hopefully with the support of members today and indeed the combined authority, we plan to achieve that again. I might also add, Mr. Mayor, that Peterborough Highway Services has an excellent track record in the successful on time and on budget delivery of major network infrastructure and capacity increase projects in the city in recent years. And this programme will similarly be delivered by a project team led by Peterborough City Council. We will also, of course, submit monthly headline progress reports to the combined authority as the works move forward. I hope members will support this, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor van der Veer.
Thank you very much. Thanks. So this is clearly a necessary scheme to enable this housing, and so therefore I entirely support it. I think I would like to make a point that I've made previously on some of these road schemes, is that it's important to try and set them in the context of an overall travel plan which does support sustainable and active travel, and that's not really done here, either in the report or the OBC. I mean, just in terms of the OBC, the SOBC, sorry, that picture on the front is just absolutely bizarre. I just don't understand how you can put out an OBC with SOBC, a document like that with a picture like that on it. Nevertheless, in terms of the substance, I think we need to sort of highlight more the context around sustainable active travel, the accompanying improvements on sustainable travel that need to be done in the wider context, and how we mitigate it. I mean, this is clearly the road network in this area is clearly quite a barrier to active travel, for example, and we need to be clear about how we can improve that to ensure that the climate change impacts in particular are as optimistic as they seem to be being in the SOBC, which largely ignores induced demand. But yes, I nevertheless, despite those comments, would be happy to support this.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nish.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, I mean, I think we're very lucky in Peterborough, or Peterborough are very lucky, should we say, because they've got a very good road network. But this area is a particularly issue. I know, having worked up there and lived around there in a previous life, I do think it is a good scheme. It's desperately needed, and I think it helps with the whole linking around the Peterborough area, which I think will help in sustainable transport and movements, and hopefully keep traffic moving as well, which will reduce congestion and some of the emissions given out on it. So I again approve and happy with this scheme.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hiller.
Yes, thank you. Just to come back on Councillor van der Weer's comments about active travel in the area. I don't know whether Councillor van der Weer knows the A16 Norwood patch particularly well, but it is circumvented by what's known as the Car Dyke, which was a Roman towpath, which at a motion passed at our last council meeting in December, we are doing a feasibility study to open that up to cyclists and pedestrians properly. It will go from Peakirk, the Peakirk Market Deeping area, past Warrington and Gunthorpe, around the Norwood area to Eye. So you might be interested, members, you might be interested to learn that. I'm never quite sure what the term active travel means, but if that is part of it, then I thought you might be interested to know that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hiller. Councillor Seaton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I fully support this this paper, and I'd just like to say it is very pleasing to see, however small, there is a little bit of dual carriageway going for the A47, the A16, which I hope will be the start of something far bigger in the future.
Absolutely, you know, this is a very positive scheme. You know, it always amazes me. You know, Peterborough delivers massive amounts of housing for the country, massive amounts of growth for the region, and it always amazes me how simple getting projects through Peterborough is in comparison to its smaller brother down in the south of Cambridgeshire. So this is a common sense piece of work. It's bringing forward over 2,000 homes. It will be delivered, as Councillor Hill has said. I'm very confident on budget and on time. I'm very, very happy to see this being discussed today. Councillor van der Veer, you want to come back?
No. That's the other one.
Okay, so do I have a proposer for this item, Councillor Hiller, and a seconder, please?
I'm happy to propose.
Thank you very much. Councillor Seaton is seconding, so that's good news. I haven't heard a dissenting voice, so if you're all comfortable, we will take this forward as a unanimous vote. I'm not seeing anybody waving at me magnificently, so that's very good, and congratulations, Councillor Hiller and Peterborough, on the next level of funding. We now move forward to item 2.3, which is the Huntingdon A4141 strategic outline business case. And I believe that Mehmet is going to join us to introduce this important piece of work.
Thank you, Mayor. Morning, members. Hopefully you can hear me and see me. So my paper is very much an update of where we've got to with the strategic outline business case for the A141 Huntingdon strategic network. I brought a report to the August Combined Authority Board last year to say that obviously the piece of work that was done previously at the outline, the option assessment report stage, had been completed, and we were moving to the strategic outline business case. As you've already heard, the CPCA are delivering this piece of work in-house, along with our partners at the County Council and also HD's Huntingdonshire District Council. Since August, we have successfully brought a contractor on board to actually deliver the SOBC on our behalf. The organisation that we have appointed is Atkins. You know, they are renowned in this area, and they've done a lot of work in this area, so they've got a very good handle of what's going on. Obviously, noting just some of the key aims of the SOBC there in the paper. Also, the other update I'd like to provide is that we believe at this stage, starting engagement is going to be quite key. Actually start talking to our partners and the community, and that goes from the county council down to the parish council, but also some of the developers who are obviously quite interested in what we're doing in this area. So there will be, as we're in this world of COVID still, there will be a virtual public engagement session, which will be commencing in February, which will seek a view on, you know, I'd say a long list of strategic options, and we will be using that information to try and finalise our strategic outline business case, which we will look at submitting middle of this year for consideration to move to the next stage. Therefore, that's my update of where we are with the A141, and thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mehmet. Members' comments, please. Councillor Massey.
I just have one comment, and it's going to be a difficult one to answer, I feel. As with any consultation, there is only a small amount of people that actually will respond, and they tend to be the same people over and over again. And the difficulty that we always have is reaching those who wouldn't normally respond. With the added difficulty that it's now an online consultation, how will we make sure that everybody who wants to respond can, and how will we make sure that disability groups, etc., have been consulted and discussed about which way they would prefer to respond as well, because some people can only actually respond via paper. So what options have you got there? That was my only thought.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. That's a valid point. I mean, what I would say is that what we've seen in our online consultations that we've carried out so far is vast improvements in the numbers of replies that we're getting, and a bigger spread across the population of replies as well. So, but I will put those points to Mehmet that perhaps he can answer a bit more detail.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. That is correct. We've done so far. We've done 2 virtual, I'd say, engagement exercises. The first one was March, and the second one was the A10. The responses on those were actually quite far and wide. They were obviously, we learned a lot from that. We did, in terms of where the outreach was, and I guess some of the streams, media streams that we can use, i.e. like Facebook and Twitter and all the rest of it. One of the things with the A141 that we're looking at doing, and one of the benefits that Atkins, I guess, engagement tool has, is that we can actually invite specific groups into a room, virtually into a room. We can actually talk to them individually as a group, and that's one of the ways that we're going to try and, let's say, overcome maybe some of those barriers. And we have got quite an extensive engagement plan and a comms plan as well, and we've developed quite a long list of approaches of how we're actually going to start talking to some of these groups. So some of the groups, like the vulnerable groups that you mentioned, obviously from experience from some of the work that I've been doing with, for example, with the e-scooter and the e-bike trials and stuff, you know, I'll be utilising some of the contacts that we have across the combined authority to try and reach out to them for this very consultation. So, but also working with my partners at Huntingdon and Cambridgeshire County Council as well, to look at which specific groups and main contact and key contacts really that we can actually go and talk to. So we'll be working very hard. We're working very hard to try and get out to as many people as we can. Hopefully that answers your question, Councillor Massey, and thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, as I said, we have had thousands and thousands more responses from online consultations than we've ever seen in the past, which is, I think, very exciting. It shows us a great way forward in the future. Councillor Nish.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think you'll be surprised to know that I quite welcome this. Just to go back on Councillor Massey's comment there, having worked with Mehmet on this, we've brought in a lot of the local members as well, and they're going to be regularly consulted, both within forums and also with any parishes that link onto that, because it's Huntingdon Town Council and other parishes around there. So we're quite adept to actually making sure that consultation does take place in numerous forums. And as members have mentioned before, you know, not all of them are the best ones for certain people, but I'm sure we will manage in the best possible way. And I think it'll actually improve maybe consultation for future. This is, you know, quite a really useful link if it comes through, and it can free up, you know, quite a large area also for increasing some housing in that locality as well, and specifically affordable housing. So I think the, you know, the whole case hopefully when it comes through will prove very effective, and thoroughly support the outline business case going forward. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. I have no further speakers. Councillor Nish, would you be happy, as it's your patch, to propose? Okay, thank you. And Councillor Seaton is going to second. Nobody's spoken against, so I will assume again that the committee is unanimous in this, and I thank you therefore, committee, for reviewing this piece of work. I think it is a very exciting piece of work for not just Huntingdonshire and Huntingdon itself, but for the Fens too. This route into the major road network from the Fens through the north of Huntingdon will not only alleviate pressure on the road network there, but it will allow for potential growth in the Whitton airfield area as well. So this is, I'm very proud that the Combined Authority has been able to put forward a solution here, which is not detrimental to the aesthetic of the Huntingdon area, that is not going over the meadowland around Godmanchester, but has taken a sensible appraisal and a sensible decision based on the upgraded A14 and A1 junction to that part of the county. So I'm very, very pleased to see the committee have supported this, and I look forward to the next stage of the work coming back to this committee. We move on to item 2.4, which is the Cambridge South East Transport Better Public Transport and Active Travel consultation. We're going to ask Tim Bellamy to introduce this report. Tim.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, committee members. Hopefully you can all hear me and see me. So the CSET project is a component part of the overall CAM scheme, and at the November Transport and Infrastructure Committee, members heard from GCP on the details of this scheme. The recommendation is to note the response that was sent to GCP in December, as delegation was sought at previous committee meetings and board. The GCP EIA consultation aimed to present information on the proposed scheme, highlight where the GCP have made refinement to the design, identify any potential environmental impacts, and set out measures for mitigation, and ultimately provide an opportunity for stakeholders to comment. The response was circulated to members of the committee and board in advance of the submission to the GCP, and is found in the appendix to this paper. But in order to summarise the response, the main points of the response were around the location of the interchanges, and need to make sure that these are within walking distance to reinforce sustainable transport message. Need to further information around the arrangement around Granta Park, and then issues around the travel hub, with this need to offer a seamless and high quality interchange and minimise the impact on the green belt. With this in mind, it was outlined in the consultation that the travel hub has minor to moderate impact on the green belt, and the mitigation measures need to be locked in and delivered in a timely manner. The car park, specifically at again at the travel hub, need to meet the expectations of year one demand and expectation, and expand in a timely manner. And the environmental issues need to be considered around the use of alternative fuels, integration into the overall transport network, and constructing in the most appropriate manner possible. I commend the paper to the committee with a recommendation to note the response that was sent to GCP in December.
Okay, members, any comments, please? So no further comments on that. So I see no objections. So can I ask Robert, do we need to go for the vote on this, as or is it just for noting?
Just a note, if members are Mayor content to note, and there's no comments to make, then it can proceed as without a formal vote.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move on, as members are content to note, to item 2.5, which is GCP consultations, Waterbeach to Cambridge and the Eastern Access, and this is Tim again.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, committee members again. Yeah, this paper is to discuss the GCP2 consultations, which were officially closed in late December, with namely the Waterbeach to Cambridge and the Eastern Access consultations. The authority agreed with the GCP to allow for an extension to our response to allow discussion at this committee and subsequently at board. The recommendations are to submit the draft responses as outlined in the appendix to this paper to board for approval. In relation to the response themselves, and to summarise, regarding the Waterbeach consultation, the issues around that were raised were namely the recent improvements to the rail network and services between Waterbeach and Cambridge. It is important to understand how this scheme will complement these improvements and not provide a duplication of effort and service. The scheme needs to support and enhance the environmental sustainability, and this includes the delivery of biodiversity net gains in a timely manner and in an appropriate location. The Waterbeach to Cambridge project needs to be integrated into the overall transport network and offer a viable, sustainable alternative to a private car. And as the scheme is developed, it's essential to due consideration is given to the whole CAM project and also the improvements of the A10. And with that in mind, it's important to consider the implications on the Milton Interchange junction and to ensure that this scheme does not adversely impact on this operation capacity and flow of the junction. In relation to the Eastern Access consultation, the main issues raised in the appendix is ensuring that the Eastern Access scheme is integrated into the plan for this area of the city and thereby decreasing the dependency on the private car to and from any planned development. The Eastern Access scheme must complement the wider CAM project, especially the tunnelling section of the project. And also, it is important that the Eastern Access scheme does not adversely impact on the operation of the Fern Ditton or the Milton Interchange junction, and seek improvements to them wherever possible. I commend this paper and the attached appendices to the committee, with a recommendation that we submit the draft responses to the board.
Thank you very much, Tim. It's open. Members' comments. Councillor Massey.
Oh yes, so the Eastern Access project actually goes through my ward in the Cambridge City, Abbey ward, which it's desperately needed. It really does need an upgrade. It's heavily congested. We need to be able to move public transport more easily through that area. And there's quite a few sticking points, including to mention the roundabout where there is a McDonald's, which of course anywhere where you're going to get a McDonald's drive-through gets congested, and if it's near residents' homes as it is, it's a major issue. So it's something that I really do commend, and I know that the GCP has looked at all of the issues that have been raised in your response, and I'm reassured that they are looking, that they have actually been working on those issues and are minded about them. So it's something that's really important. It's really needed for everybody coming into the east of Cambridge City, and I look forward to it progressing in the future.
Thank you very much. Councillor David Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully get what Councillor Massey has just said. For those of you who don't know, I represent Burwell, and coming in on Newmarket Road obviously is our access into the city. I have some real concerns though about what GCP is planning here, and they really do not seem to be taking into account the needs of some of the people who work in Cambridge and live out my way. I'm thinking about carers who travel into the city on that route in private cars. I'm thinking about we've seen a significant increase in the number of people delivering parcels for Hermes, Amazon, etc. And I don't know about in your areas, but certainly in my area, the majority of those are in private cars. We need to get some kind of safeguard for those kind of people who are living just outside the GCP area, but are working in Cambridge City and actually need access to their car during the working day. I get all of it about encouraging people who don't need to be moving around during their working day, but I'd really like to see us as a committee add something into our response here, just recognising the value that those people bring into Cambridge City and actually trying to do something that safeguards them and allows them to carry on working, to be blunt. It's also people like tradespeople and servicemen who require access to moving around during the day. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, David. Councillor Massey, you want to come back on that?
Yes, thanks. I think it's important to note that the GCP, as Mayor Palmer is aware, are also looking at last mile delivery. And I think, in fact, Mayor Palmer is also doing the same thing, which is about trying to stop all these hundreds of thousands of delivery vans from coming in all at once when they could all be delivered in a much more sustainable way, using one van instead of 15, for instance. And so that is something that is being looked at in different, and Mayor Palmer can comment on what he's already doing because he already knows what he's doing in regards to that. And also, I think it's also important to note that if we are able to get the traffic flowing more freely in that area, and we're able to get more people to go onto public transport because there'll be more public transport options, then it will be less congested, and therefore people who do need to use their cars, like carers, like tradespeople, will be able to do so without that congestion.
Yeah, it's where they pick up the public transport that's the issue. That's the problem. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Massey, as well. Yeah, I totally agree, but our response doesn't say that, and I would like our response to actually say that.
Okay, absolutely. Any further comments at all, please? Okay, well, I just want to add, I'm very concerned about what's being proposed for Waterbeach. I've been out to look at Waterbeach and spoken to a number of residents there. I'm generally concerned about putting a busway from Cambridge North Station directly to Waterbeach Station, which is probably less than 2 miles away, going through and on the edge of Waterbeach. Doesn't seem to be, to me, at this moment in time, any genuine reason to do so when the train has just been doubled in capacity between Kings Lynn and Cambridge, and extra 4 carriages on those Kings Lynn to Cambridge trains. So I'm very concerned that the short-term investment should probably be more towards the railway than a busway, and I'm worried that GCP are perhaps spending money in the wrong area or doing the wrong thing in Waterbeach at this particular juncture, and potentially a future spend could be invested more sensibly by drawing down from the money that's available or will be available from developers from the second phase of Waterbeach Barracks, which I know does include improvements to the station. So genuinely concerned about what the reason is for putting the busway between Waterbeach Station and Cambridge North Station, and how wise that is. I also share Councillor Brown's concerns. And I said this before, this isn't necessarily the fault of the GCP. The GCP have an area that they work to. But ultimately, if you ignore or are blind to the fact that people have had to move out of the Cambridge area into parts of the county that they can afford to live in, and then are forced to try and get into the Cambridge area, if you ignore the fact that public transport needs to be upgraded beyond Cambridge and beyond South Cambs, then you're not going to solve the problem. There is a bigger and wider issue here. It is a whole county problem and a whole county solution that's needed, and that's exactly what we're trying to deliver through the combined authority. And I hope that we can, through working with the GCP, get to a sensible position where the whole area is sorted out. Quite frankly, a park and ride on the edge of Cambridge is not going to solve transport problems and issues through the Fens, through where Councillor Brown lives in Burwell, or even out through into Huntingdonshire, etc. So we just need to be more joined up in our thinking and more closely aligned in where we are on these things. So I'm happy to propose from the chair. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Brown. And I see everybody waving, saying no, we shouldn't go to the, we need to go to the vote. So I would take that this is unanimous from the members, unless I see anything different. Okay, so we therefore are unanimous, and we move on to item 2.6, which is the Cambridgeshire Autonomous Metro. Before we begin this item, I must inform the committee of a slight procedure amendment to recommendation B of the board report that should make recommendation to the Combined Authority Board. Could I now please ask Simon Wright to introduce the report?
Yes, good morning, members and Mr. Mayor. Thank you. So the report you have in front of you, item 2.6, has 3 recommendations. A, to support the Mayor in his representative role on the Greater Cambridge Partnership Executive Board by recommending that the Combined Authority Transport and Infrastructure Committee take an active role in advising the Mayor on Cam Metro matters prior to his attendance at the GCP Executive Board. Item B, to facilitate to amend Chapter 8 of the Combined Authorities Constitution, Section 3, to include the following: 3.2.13, which says review matters relating to the CAM scheme prepared by the Greater Cambridge Partnership and make representations to the GCP Executive Board relating to CAM matters. And recommendation C is to support the Mayor in his attendance at the Greater Cambridge Partnership Executive Board by reviewing and commenting upon the proposals for a northern route on the A428, which we'll come to in Appendix 1, and request that it be considered by GCP in addition to the southern route before making a decision on the preferred Camborne to Cambridge route. You may recall that this was discussed back in November, I think, at a previous board. And in Appendix 1, you will see the route corridor for northern route options. These have been considered in outline in the previous phase of work, and that they were previously reported to this group. And it's the same series of corridors that are shown on this Appendix 1. And so the recommendation is to ask GCP to consider the northern route along with the southern routes further before making a decision on the Camborne to Cambridge route corridor. The initial assessment work that we've carried out in consultation with GCP was that which was reported on last time. There's been no further work carried out since the previous vote, but the work was to identify an option to the north or options to the north. And we pointed out that those have some challenges, as the route to the south does, and those challenges were discussed briefly at that previous meeting. But in outline, the route that you see in Appendix 1, starting at the Camborne end, runs to the north of the A428. And of course, this somewhat depends on the East-West Rail decision. You will be aware that the decision on the East-West Rail station is not yet finalised, and whether or not the station that they propose is to the north of Camborne or to the south is not yet agreed. It's out for consultation, I believe. And so we've shown 2 options there, subject to that decision, because of course we want an integrated station with East-West Rail. And then the route follows the A428, crossing Scotland Road Junction, and then coming around to Madingley and follows the A428 up just south of Madingley, and then we cross the junction and go through the 800 wood, just the very corner of the 800 wood, before sweeping north to avoid the protected zone on the American Cemetery, which is that loop just above Cambridge Road, and then we sweep south into the Cambridge campus and into the portal of the central section. The alternative route in this is shown as a tunnel section to avoid what clearly are sensitive features, the American Cemetery and Madingley and the 800 wood, and a tunneled option would of course avoid those, but at a significant increase in cost. And so those have shown as options. Very initial work has been carried out by our consultants. That was shared with GCP back in October, but as a result of the previous meeting, no further work has been carried out until now. And this is being represented to this group with the recommendations that I read out at the outset. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Members. Councillor van der Veer.
Yep, I'll happily go first. You just mentioned, Mr. Wright, that that there had been some initial assessment work, and I think that is what was it was recorded as an action from the last meeting that would be shared with members, and it clearly hasn't been, and it does make it very difficult for us to make a judgment on what you've been talking about, not having seen that work. So some understanding of what's going on there, what work has been done, and why we can't see it, and if we can see it, would be a useful starting point before getting into the substance.
Yeah, Mr. Wright.
I'm not sure what the question was actually.
So this initial assessment work done by Jacobs, which is a several pages long document, I understand, has not been shared with the committee. We were told it would be shared with the committee. We asked for it to be shared with the committee, and the minutes record that it was going to be shared with the committee. So the combined authority has not done what it said it would do following the last meeting. So in the last 2 months, as I understand it, nothing has happened. The only thing that has happened is that you have not done what you said you would do. I'll put it as bluntly as that, if that helps.
Thank you. Well, that's very blunt and very clear. The work was done. No further work had been done since. As the vote went last time, I understood no further action was to be taken on this route, and no further actions have been taken. If the report should have been shared, I apologise. That was my oversight. I didn't see that action as being dedicated to me to carry out, so that was my fault. I apologise if that was the case, but no further work was done since, and I understood that no further work was destined to be or was required to be done, and therefore we have left it as it was at that time.
Maybe I could put the question a little bit differently. How can we be expected to make a decision on this when we don't have all the information?
But the decision is simply to add this as an option for further consideration by GCP as part of their assessment. It's not a decision as to whether one or other route would be selected, but the decision is simply to ask that GCP consider this alongside the existing route as one of the options. The work will then be carried out to a similar standard, such that they can be compared reasonably and effectively, following which a decision on the preferred route would be carried out. So this is not in any way judging which is the preferred route. It's simply saying, are you willing, are you prepared to agree that they should be asked to consider this as an alternative?
I mean, as the report sets out, that a decision of that nature would have several implications, including a certain amount of officer time and a certain amount of expenditure by the GCP, principally by the combined authority as well. And again, so it's not a decision without consequences, even if it's not a sort of giving a view, as it were. So we need to have some assurance, surely, about what has happened, and that it is a reasonable thing to make that decision.
I think, Councillor Van der Veer, you're missing the point. What we're saying to the GCP is here that we don't feel that you've looked appropriately at a potential northern route. We're not saying to the GCP the northern route is the only way to go. What we're saying is, in order to have full transparency and the support of the public, and this is here because, Councillor Van der Veer, please, I've spoken at length with members along the route and with local liaison forum representatives and parish councils, and the feeling is that the GCP haven't properly looked at the northern route. So it is appropriate, I believe, for the combined authority to say to the GCP, here is a northern route alternative. If you have given us, perhaps you were chairman for a while, Councillor Van der Veer, if you have fully consulted on the northern route, if you have fully compared northern and southern appropriately, then let's see the work that you've done, this joint working. But here is a northern route for you to look at alongside your southern route. I think that's appropriate for this Transport Committee to ask that question of the Greater Cambridge Partnership. You know, and this is a Transport Committee of the Combined Authority. This isn't a Transport Committee that is members of the GCP on the Combined Authority Transport Committee. This is a Transport Committee of the Combined Authority, and it is appropriate for us to look, as I mentioned in the previous item on Waterbeach and Eastern Access, it's appropriate for us to look at this with a whole Cambridgeshire perspective and how it may affect the rest of the county. What is obvious and what is clear from what Mr. Wright has told us is that that we know that there is going to be East-West Rail coming through this patch. We know it is imperative that what the work that is done with the route between Cambridge and Camborne as part of the wider St Neots Haverhill route is certainly aligned with the East-West Rail route. And at the moment, the work that's been done, I don't believe, does have that insight. And the work that has been done by the GCP that I have seen certainly doesn't include any mention of the route, the East-West Rail route at all. It is appropriate that we ask the question as a Transport Committee for the Combined Authority. It's appropriate that we ask the question to the GCP as to whether they have fully considered all options.
Well, you talk about transparency, but you have not shared this report with us. You have not done us the courtesy of doing what you said you would do and being transparent about the information that you have. I don't know how you can talk about transparency in this context.
I think, Councillor Andervere, you have seen what we have, and I think it's very clear that we are being transparent. What we do not have, Councillor Vanderveer, as a former chairman of the GCP, what we do not have is full sight of the work the GCP have done to compare a northern and southern. No. So therefore, we are saying to the GCP here, this is a northern option. We feel you should take a look at it.
All members of this committee have not seen the work that was just referred to, this initial assessment work. All members of this committee have not seen that work.
I think that,
and we asked to do, and you did not do us the courtesy of sharing that with us. I have some other points rather than carrying on this debate, if I may. The other thing we're being asked to do is on the change the terms of reference to this. I don't understand the need for this. We are already able to look at matters how they relate to the local transport plan. So essentially, the important thing for this committee is a matter of conformity with the local transport plan, essentially a technical matter, rather than looking in detail at everything in advance, essentially replicating the work of the Joint Assembly in particular of the GCP. In addition, making a unilateral decision in this way to demand of another body that it changes its own processes for us, I think it's an inappropriate way of doing it. The GCP is already a partnership. You sit on the board as well, and that's I think an excellent way of approaching this. I mean, all of us, County Council, South Cam, City Council, and now the Combined Authority, are partners of the GCP. Rather than having this additional work, I certainly can't be supporting this proposal. And in relation to this northern route, as things stand, not having the information and the fact that this committee does not have the information that has been done on this, the technical work, means I think we should not be supporting this at this point. And in addition, the GCP last month, as you're aware, you were there, decided to conduct an independent audit of the assumptions and constraints of the Camborne to Cambridge route. I think it's much more appropriate that the Combined Authority and this committee engages in that rather than sort of lobbing in ideas from the side. So again, I don't think it's appropriate to support this now.
Okay, but I just want to make this clear, members. We're not doing a review of the northern route. We are putting forward this to the GCP to help us consider. Now, if the GCP have fully considered the northern route and have all the information necessary, they can share that with us, and we will say, thank you very much. You've fully considered, you've fully consulted, you've fully compared the northern route and the southern route, and we are comfortable with that. We have not had oversight of that work yet, despite us being told by GCP it's on the website. It's not been oversight of that work. There is a feeling, and it's a job as politicians to represent the views of the public, but there is a feeling from members and from individuals and from public, from councils and residents groups within that route, the GCP have not fully consulted. And when I've looked into this, it does seem that there is a hole in what the GCP have done, and it is entirely appropriate for us to say, as a combined authority transport board, have you fully considered GCP, and have you fully dotted the I's and crossed the T's on your transport corridor work between Camborne and Cambridge, especially as Councillor Howe mentioned, this is an extremely important part of a wider route that includes Camborne and the potential growth of Camborne in the area, and of course East-West Rail. So this is, in my view, an entirely appropriate issue for us as a transport committee for Cambridgeshire and Peterborough to be discussing, and is entirely appropriate for us to put recommendations, not to tell the GCP what to do, but to ask them to consider options. Councillor Massey.
Hi, thank you. I'm just trying to understand what it is that you're now asking. So I think I'm getting a little bit of feedback. So the report is actually asking us to present this particular route and to have a look at this particular route as an option, as opposed to their current route, which they're doing an independent audit on in any case. However, this committee hasn't got the full facts. There's two issues that we've already heard. One that Aidan has mentioned in regards to the technical work, and the second one that Mark Howe mentioned in regards to the environmental impact assessment when we're talking about Madingley Hall Gardens, American Cemetery and the 800 Wood. The other point that we mentioned in the first meeting in November was the added cost to this particular route. The extra bridges that was needed was going to add extra costs. The amount of times it crosses over roads, again, even more money is going to be spent. We haven't yet had the technical report. We asked for the technical report. It was noted as an action, it wasn't done. We asked for the environmental impact assessment report. It was noted as a action, it wasn't done. You're now bringing it back to us without that and asking us to recommend that the GCP looks at this when we haven't had all of the information. And I think it's really important that we do have that information. If the committee has asked for it, it's something that they feel is important. We also got some factually incorrect comments back in the report, but I expect the report is mostly what we saw in November. The GCP officer comments in paragraph 2.10, for instance, is factually incorrect. And this was reported in the minutes, indeed, that it was incorrect, but yet it's already reported incorrect here. So it's almost like it's a copy and paste job. So I'm trying to understand what has changed since November. We have asked for further information, which we haven't got, but yet we've got the same recommendation, but yet no substance to it.
I think Councillor Massey, again, I think you're missing the point of what we're putting forward here.
No,
we're asking the GCP to look at the options for a northern route as well as a southern route. We're not saying this is the route, we've got it fully worked up and this is what you must do. We're not being that descriptive. We're saying you must look at the options for a northern route as well as a southern route, because we're not confident that that work has been completed, nor are we confident, or nor am I confident, certainly, that there has been full weight added to the impact of East-West Rail through this corridor. This is not about, when you deliver public transport over a wide area, and I hate to keep going on about this, but this is an 8-mile section of a 140-mile public transport network across Cambridgeshire. If we get this bit wrong, it will have negative impact across the piece, across the entirety of the network. And it is imperative that we make sure that we bring the public along with us when we're delivering public transport networks. I know at least one member of this committee has been on a march with regard to his concerns about the C2C route. We know there is significant problems and concerns along this corridor, and just bullying through the easiest thing from an officer point of view, or necessarily the cheapest thing from an officer point of view, is not necessarily the best way to deliver public transport corridors. If we look at successful delivery of public transport across not just the UK, but internationally, it's over consultation, not under consultation, that brings forward the best solutions. What we're not going to the GCP with a worked up product with a full environmental assessment behind it, nor do we expect to do that. What we're saying to the GCP is, in your work to deliver this important part of this Leeds to Hayville route, you please must consider all options. And it is the view of certain elements of the public in this route. The GCP have not properly considered the options. If the GCP then push forward with this scheme, they leave themselves open to significant delay and judicial review because they haven't considered the full solution. I'm not saying at any stage, Councillor Batty, that the solution that we have here is the solution that must go forward. What I'm saying is that we need to properly consider a northern and a southern route so the general public have confidence that what is being delivered and what will be delivered by the GCP is the right route that people have been properly consulted on. And I think that's the important thing.
Can I just I haven't completed the question either. Recommendation C says to support the Mayor in his attendance at the Greater Cambridge Partnership Executive Board by reviewing and commenting upon a proposal for the route north of the A428 Appendix 1 and request that it be considered by the GCP in addition to the southern route. You are asking this committee to ask the GCP to look at this particular route.
Yes. Yes, of course.
You just told me that, you just told the committee that you asked them to look at a northern route, not this particular route.
Well, if you look at the northern route that we've not put a designated route along. There's hashed areas of options where this could go through. So we've not been prescriptive and said, this is the route we will put through. There are areas of options that could be delivered through this route. So it's a matter of looking at it and for the GCP to then consider what the best solution along that corridor is.
But you're asking to go forward with this particular route to go forward to the GCP without having the information that we asked for, which I think is a valid point, and I would ask for it to be minuted as such. There's no financial recommendations for the report, which is a concern. And I know you said that it's not always necessarily the cheaper option is the right option, and that is totally correct. I mean, look at the Coldham's Lane roundabout. The cheapest option for that clearly wasn't the right option, and that was something that needed to have been addressed from the off. But I think I'm just really concerned that we've not had any responses. We've had incorrect comments made in the report that's been contradicted by the minutes. This, I feel, nothing has changed since November, and it's really confusing as to why it's been brought back. And I think the general public will need to know that, in addition to the knowledge that the Cambridge route, southern route in any case, is going under an additional audit from the GCP to make sure that everything is covered, that all options are covered. So I don't understand why we would want to add something else to the mix when it's already being done.
Thank you. Councillor Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask some questions to Mr. Wright, if that's okay with yourself.
Certainly.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wright, with regards to the report, which we don't have, but you have referred to, can you tell us, please, what does it say with regards to the northern and southern route?
What does it say in summary? I mean, obviously it says...
Yes, with regard to it must give us summary which one they think is...
Yeah.
Can you tell us what it says, please?
The northern route is slightly less preferred in many areas, all areas. It is more expensive at 122.7 million versus 91.1 million for the southern route. There are a number of slightly negative environmental impacts or potential environmental impacts on the greenfield land west of the M11, the visual impact from the additional bridge over the M11, the 800 Wood, the American Cemetery, and Madingley Hall, of course, which is registered park and garden, and Madingley Conservation Area, and south of Moores Barn Farmhouse, which is a Grade 2 listed building. So there are a number of environmental impacts which have been identified, which would of course need further work to seek mitigation. We haven't done the work on mitigation yet. but the comparators have been carried out on cost and environmental impact primarily.
Okay,
and
thank you.
the northern route has is slightly less preferred in those areas, as I've described.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for that. With regards to what you said earlier on, I just want to clarify something that you said, if you don't mind, please. With regards to the routes going forward, the northern and the southern route, I think you said, and I'm trying to paraphrase really, that you would like them to be discussed and considered by the Greater Cambridge Partnership when they're at a similar standard. That would mean to me, I'm paraphrasing, so you might want to explain that. That would mean to me some considerable work would have to be done on the northern route, as Mayor Palmer's just said. It's just at the moment an indicative line. I'm paraphrasing again. So how long and how much would it take to actually get it to a similar standard where they could be compared, please?
Well, I think the position would be to get to a standard where they can be reasonably identified in terms of preferred options.
Okay.
So it's not a question of saying that they both have to be taken to a certain OBC level or SOBC level or anything like that. I would have, in my professional opinion, you need to get to the point where you can reasonably compare them on a like-for-like basis. So you have adequate information. I wouldn't want to be prescriptive about what that would include. But in the past, work was done by them overall, and it's a question of bringing various elements of the work that's been done and the work that Jacobs did for us more recently to a point where we've got a comparative set of options that we can reasonably compare as technical people. Then on the technical basis, those comparisons can be made, and obviously we want that to be as quick as possible because we don't want to pursue multiple options any longer than necessary. And on the basis of that comparison, then and then back to you as a committee for a decision on whether you think one or other can now be taken forward as the preferred option, having had that work banked and verified, and that people can make the decision on the basis of a reasonable set of comparative information and data.
So with that in mind, and thank you very much indeed for that comprehensive answer, with that in mind, how long do you think it would take for us to get to that particular stage? How have we got to that particular? I mean, are we talking 6 months, a year, 2 years, and approximately then how much would that cost?
I would hope it would be a matter of weeks rather than months or years, certainly not years. I mean, and I don't know the answer because we did this very initial piece of work simply to seek out whether or not there was a likelihood of a northern option being in any way feasible. But the proposition is that we would ask GCP to take on this as part of their assessment because they've been doing all the other work and they've got all the baseline data on the environmental work. We don't have that. So I'm afraid I can't tell you how long it would take because I don't know what information they already have on the northern route, whether they did initial work and they've got baseline information or not. I think we'd have to have the discussion with them if this is to proceed in the way suggested. We'd have to have that discussion and come back and report to you on the timescale. But I would hope it would be a matter of weeks, not months.
Thank you very much, Henry. Mr. Mayor, I have concerns with this with regards to where we're going on this, especially with the absence of the report, which we've now had a portion read to us, and we haven't seen all the detail, just a small portion of it. So I do have at the moment grave concerns about this particular going forward because I don't see it being relevant at the moment, and there's a financial impact on this as well. So I do at the moment have concerns. I'm quite happy to listen to the other speakers first, however. Okay, but I might come back to you later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howe. Councillor Nish.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think after the November one, I think there's a little bit more clarity. I do have probably still some concerns that we haven't got all the details as to whether the report that we haven't seen says it's really good or bad. But I do thank Mr. Wright for actually sort of giving us a little bit more info on that one. So again, but I also think it's very useful to have options as long as those options are viable. And I'm not completely clear in my own mind as to whether the northern route is viable, but equally I'm not clear whether it's not viable. So my view is at the moment, and happy to listen to the rest, and especially after Councillor Howell's asked me questions which I was going to ask. I think at the moment it's on the balance, but in general terms, I think it's worthwhile putting the options and asking the GCP to look at those options, because I'm not 100% sure in my own mind, not being part of the GCP or anything like that, as to what areas they're looking at. So at the moment we're in the balance, but I do think it's worthwhile, as you've put, Mr. Mayor, that we do look at options or provide options if they are viable. But I do have a slight concern at the additional cost, but that's my view at the moment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor. We can't go over point. You know, we're not asking you to judge whether the northern route is good or bad. We're just asking the GCP to look at it to make sure that when they make their final decision, they're fully consulted and made the decision based on all the information that is at hand to them. That's what this is about. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I've heard a number of comments from members of the committee that's saying that they haven't seen this technical report. On the flip side, I haven't seen anything from the GCP that says a northern route is ruled out because. Therefore, I can't see any reason why we're not asking the GCP to consider a northern route. If they've already looked at it and ruled it out, fine. It certainly won't take them very long to answer the question to us, and it won't cost them very much. So why are we keeping going round and round and round, creating more delay, more delay? Let's ask them if they've got to at least consider it. And if they've already considered it, they can effectively reply straight away saying, we've already done that, and this is why you can't have one.
Yeah, okay, that's exactly my point. Councillor Seaton.
Thank you, Mayor. I would fully support what Councillor Brown has just said. And sometimes I wonder, you know, I think we have to remind ourselves that we are a combined authority committee, not a GCP committee. And it does concern me sometimes that, you know, there seems to be a grey line between the two. This is not just about the northern route. As you said earlier, Mr. Mayor, this is only a small part of the whole Cam Metro outline. And of course, in the future, I'd like to see that Cam Metro go as far as Chatteris. So I am behind this. I don't think you're quite right. We're not saying this is the best or the worst, but it should be there for consideration. And I think there should be a choice, and we will find out the cost of it if this goes forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Seaton. Councillor Hiller.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know whether it's a Peterborough thing, Peterborough mindset, but what you have said almost ad nauseum is very, very clear to me. I think Mr. Wright's address and explanation again was very, very clear. And I completely agree with Councillor Seaton and Brown. What we are asking the GCP to do is to consider this route. How much more clear can you be? I don't, frankly, I don't get it. Why we're going around, as I think Councillor Brown said, we go round and round and round in circles. Just ask them to consider it. What's wrong with doing that? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Howell. You said you wanted to come back. You've put your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just another question for Mr. Wright, or maybe to yourself. Who commissioned the Jacob report, please?
We did, CPCA.
Okay, thank you very much. And have you shared that with the GCP?
Yes, it was worked up with them, with officers. So it was a piece of joint. Jacobs did the work on our behalf, but it was at officer level. It was done in consultation with GCP, and they were fully aware of what we were doing. And we have this regular steering group, which we reported on last time. And so we do have very regular dialogue with GCP. We have a very good relationship with GCP, and we work well together. And we did work this up with their knowledge.
Okay, so
clearly, I'm not putting words in their mouth that they, in any way, you know, were keen on it. Let's put it like that. But they were fully aware we're doing it, and we did talk to them and discuss with them the fact that when we came to you last time in November, they were fully aware of that paper. In fact, we shared the paper with them, I think.
Thank you. So this is not a question to you because it'd be unfair for me to say it. So I'm now stating a statement. So the GCP has seen the northern route, and that report has stated that the northern route, what you have said earlier on, Mr. Wright, because we haven't seen that report, is not the preferred option, and they have outlined why that, and the Jacobs report has outlined why that shouldn't be the preferred option, and therefore the risk of judicial review on that particular is slight because we've already had it and the GCP has taken that into consideration. I don't feel at this present moment I can support this going forward. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Wright.
Thank you, Councillor Howe. Councillor Massey, you want to come back again?
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to come back. It does say that by reviewing and commenting on the proposal for the route, the North route, this particular route. I'm not sure that everyone has actually commented on this particular route. They have commented on a northern route and the need for a GCP to have an oversight of that, which they already have done, as Councillor Howe has just explained and Simon Wright has just explained also. So I'm really baffled when you say that we're not actually looking at this specific route, because we clearly are. And it's this specific route that we're saying that it doesn't make any sense. We've not seen any technical details or environmental impact assessments. And on that basis, I think that actually we can't properly comment on it because we haven't seen the full detail.
Well, thank you, Councillor
Mr.
Massey.
Mayor, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just want to clarify something, either to yourself or to Mr. Wright. So is the report confidential?
Well, we're discussing it in an open public forum, so
but not the
one
whole
would suggest
contents.
not.
Yeah, but but not the whole contents of the report. So I'm assuming that the report itself is not confidential then.
Well, we certainly wouldn't be discussing it in an open public forum, Councillor Howell, if it was. So, I think, as I said, we've given this a significant airing. Again, we are here as representatives of the public. And it's very important the public feel that they are properly consulted and properly questioned on issues. It's my view that the public do not feel that in this particular region and this particular area, which is why we're asking the GCP very simply, as Councillor Hira and Councillor Brown and others have pointed out, just to take a look at this. So I'm going to propose from the chair. Do I have a seconder, please?
I just, sorry, be very quickly, Mr. Mayor. Limb B of our recommendation is to be read as recommending to the combined authority the amendment of Chapter 8. I just wanted, sorry, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I interrupted you.
Yes, yeah.
Happy to second, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Hiller and Councillor Seaton have both indicated. So I think Councillor Hiller and we will go through one by one. So those in favour, Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Hiller.
For.
Councillor Howe.
Against.
Councillor Massey.
Against.
Councillor Nish.
For.
Councillor Seaton.
For.
Councillor Vader.
Against.
And myself, I'm obviously for. So thank you, members. And we move on to item 2.7, which is London Luton Airport airspace stack consultation. And Tim Bellamy is going to fly through this with us.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, committee members. This paper is to discuss the National Air Traffic Service consultation. It's the proposed changes to the flight path, arrival flight path and stacking arrangement for London Luton Airport. The closing date of the consultation is the 5th of February 2021. Members are asked to discuss a potential response from the authority and with delegation thought for the Director of Delivery and Strategy in consultation to the Chair to respond to the consultation. London Luton Airport and NAT consider that if the air traffic returned to the pre-pandemic levels, growth trajectories and levels, flight paths and stacking areas will become overcrowded due to the air traffic for Stansted and for Luton, and delay will result. As a consequence, NATS and Luton Airport have developed two options. Both of these options have holding stats requiring airplanes to circle at or above 8,000 feet over parts of Huntingdonshire and South Cambridgeshire. The difference between the two options is that the route from the holding stat to the final landing path are slightly different, but the actual holding stats are the same for both options. So the potential areas of concern that have been expressed in the paper that may be a start of conversation at the committee is one around noise pollution. It is expected that on the ground, the observer will hear decibels between 57 and 59 decibels, which is equivalent to a normal conversation or a dishwasher. And so there'll be some noise pollution. In addition, there'll be some air pollution. It is noted that in the airspace consultation document that the average arrival in 2022 is expected to increase fuel use by around 89 kilograms and will emit 285 kilograms more CO2. Following the consultation, NATS and London Luton Airport expect to submit a formal airspace change proposal to the Civil Aviation Authority in June 2021. And if this is approved, it is planned that the suggested changes will not be implemented before February 2022. I commend the paper to the committee. I'm open for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor van der Veer.
Hello, yes, thank you very much for that introduction. It's very, very helpful. So my main confusion about this is what the net change or the net sort of negative impact would be. I mean, this is about moving stacking of some aircraft from one place to another place. So as I understand it, there won't be more aircraft in the skies. There otherwise would be. So and I have looked to some extent at the information that's on the consultation website. Is whether this would whether these changes would increase the impact of those fixed same number of aircraft on our residents, either by sort of them being lower over residential areas and therefore creating more noise, or by them creating the same amount of noise but over areas with higher populations. So are there more people affected, and are people affected more severely? And I haven't really got a proper handle on that. I mean, if you have any idea on that, that would be useful. But otherwise, I think it's a sort of spreading out the burden of airspace of stacking would seem to be better. Flying benefits us all, so spreading out that impact. But if it does impact, say, for example, on more of the populated areas of Huntingdon, St Neots, Gambling Day, for example, more than areas that are currently not populated, then I think that is a very serious concern.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nish.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not overly clear, because I think they need experts to actually work out decibels and all sorts of things like that. I mean, from what I could read between it, and I will say, we're still consulting with our members as to what our response will be from a district council perspective, because obviously it does affect South Cambs and over Huntingdonshire in some areas, mainly down the south of St Neots. The heights are pretty high, and I think it'd be quite difficult to actually possibly, let alone see them, probably not hear them. I think the only thing is when they talk about the multiple stacking, I think when it comes down to the lower level, which I think, if I'm right, I think you said was at about 8,000 feet, which is still pretty high, it doesn't say as to which way they would stack. So if it was just a couple of planes, it'd be ideal if they're at the, I think it's 24,000, I might have got the figures wrong, the higher level. And if they get really packed, then then that level. I don't think it actually says that. You might be able to correct me on that one. So in general terms, I don't think there'd be a massive impact, but like anything, there's always going to be some there, and people will always suddenly look up and see an airplane going around and think, what's that doing now? Whereas we haven't had planes over this area for quite a while, since Alconbury was really closed down. But so that'd be my general comments really on that one. And as I said, we're responding as well as District Council, and I'm sure other councils as well.
Thank you very much. Tim, did you just want to come back on a couple of the points that Councillor Nish made?
Yes. So firstly, on the comment made by Councillor van der Veer around the stacking, the stack before, from my reading of the consultation documentation, is they were not within our authority area. They were in the rural areas of Essex and some parts of Bedfordshire. But that's not to say that they weren't impacting on some residents in those areas. But I'm happy to go away and look to see what the impacts are on numbers of populations, etc. And in regard to Councillor Nish's comment around the multiple stacking, I think that it's very difficult to understand from the consultation documentation again of what levels they're going to stack at. So is it at 8,000 to start with, and then they go up to 24, or vice versa? But it is a question that I'm happy to ask.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, a comment on what Councillor van der Veer said earlier on, because my reading of certainly the report, paragraph 2.2, is talking about air traffic returning to its pre-pandemic growth trajectory. So we are talking about more planes, not just the same number. But one comment I did want to throw in, I'm actually not very keen on horses, but the racehorse and stud industry is very important, certainly in East Cambridgeshire in our area. And I understand from comments that have been given to me that they can actually be quite spooked by these aircraft stacking over them. And I just wonder whether we could put a comment into our report, just making sure that that industry has been given the opportunity to make its own technical case for or against. I mean, I might be talking totally out of line, and they don't have any concerns. But I think it's incumbent on us to actually ask NATS to ask people like the Jockey Club whether it would affect their industry.
Okay, thank you very much. We will do that. Councillor van der Veer, you want to come back?
Yeah, just very briefly, the point was not about the sort of disagreeing with that amounts of air traffic will increase, but it's whether this change in itself will increase air traffic. I think it's rather than moving the same plane from one place to another place, rather than increase. Undoubtedly, will return, and we need to expect that it will return and manage things accordingly. Absolutely.
Okay. No further comments. So we move to the recommendation. Do you have a proposer, please? Councillor Brown, and a seconder, please, Councillor Nish. I haven't seen anybody speak against, so with the recommendations as have been mentioned and the points that have been mentioned to the officer here, then we will take that as unanimous. So we move on to item 2.8, which is the A605 Kings Dyke project update. And Roland is going to take us through. Roland.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members. I seek your tolerance in this, as we're trying to do something technically that we haven't necessarily done before, in terms of show a drone video of the 605 Kings Dyke progress in the construction phase. So if I can ask Nick and Daniel to try and get that started, and I'll try and talk over the top of it and talk you through it. I think it's quite important that committees and boards that comment and vote on schemes and the budgets around schemes get the opportunity, if it's available, to actually see the progress whilst it's in the construction phase, and it's something we haven't necessarily been able to do previously. So this is a drone video, which I'm not sure whether it's actually running or frozen at this moment in time, and I'll try and talk you through it. So you'll see to the north is to the top of the screen is North Bank and the Neen Wash area there. Yeah, to the top of the screen now, and then to the left of the screen is towards Peterborough. So this is a very important route, as we all know. It is a significant level crossing where you've got an interaction of vehicles and rail, causing congested delays that can be quite extensive, and particularly if there's flooding in the Neen Washes. And so it's been supported and funded by the Combined Authority and Cambridgeshire County Council, and the works actually started in June and have commenced. So we're actually moving towards the western side of the scheme, which is on the 605 junction, coming on to what is now called section 1, and you can see there's quite a lot of quite substantial earthworks that have been undertaken here to build the level up and secure the level for the new road to sit on top of. And there will be a roundabout at this junction, a new roundabout at this junction, to allow the 605 traffic to enter onto the new route and then go over a bridge. One of the reasons for this is purely an update to the committee, and I hope that the visual aid would bring it to life a little bit on the significant amount of work that our contractors actually do in the ground, and the challenges that they have. And we all appreciate that this scheme is in a challenging location with the flood levels, etc., that surround it. So this will be where the new roundabout to enter into what's currently called section 1, and the scheme is split into 3 sections: section 1, section 2, section 3. The scheme is progressing extremely well against programme and is scheduled to open in December 22. So there's significant work still to go, but it is progressing well. The scheme in section 1 had some minor design changes to be made, and also in section 2 when we get to it, which the contractors had to address. That hasn't delayed section 1 and section 2 as such, but it has changed the programme slightly. But to smooth the programme, the contractor has been proactive and brought forward work in section 3, and in our budget report earlier, and in the budget going to board, there is a request being made to bring forward budget from the next financial year into this financial year, because the smoothing of the programme has enabled work in section 3 with the good weather to be brought forwards and that work had a costed value that was greater than the work in section 1 and 2. But it's not an overall budget increase, it is purely a smoothing. So we're travelling along section 1 and entering in towards section 2, and you'll see at the top of the screen that this is the Star Pit, that the notorious Star Pit, which is one of the big challenges that the contractor has had to consider and undertake in this scheme. And to the left of the Star Pit there, what will need to happen is that will need to have some shoring up and some infill to enable the alignment to go across that corner for the proper alignment of the route from safety perspective. And one of the big challenges is what silt buildup is in the base of the Star Pit there, and there's some very interesting technical work being undertaken to test the level of silt and the solidity of the base of the pit, and that will establish what work is required, and then equally what level of backfill is required. So you'll see the railway line going across there, and this is the point at which, and then we've got that's the end of the video. So I hope that was entertaining and demonstrated the amount of work that our large schemes undertake. As I say, it's an update. The programme is going extremely well. The contractor is managing and mitigating the risks as we go, and there are regular project boards of which I attend. And as I say, there is a smoothing of the budget by bringing some budget forward from next year into this financial year, but that is to enable programme and progress to be efficient whilst we have the good weather in our favour, and we hope, of course, that remains the case going forward in this early part of 2021. And I commend the report to the committee, and happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. There are 3 hands up already. Councillor Peter Hiller is first.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Roland, for that very, very interesting and innovative address. The drone flyover I thought was fascinating, and actually gives people, unaware of what these huge civil engineering projects involve, exactly what they do involve. Certainly challenging, but I would have to say, Mr. Mayor, this is a significant and very much needed civil engineering project in Peterborough to free up the traffic at this particular notorious pinch point. It's a main arterial route, from Fenland, into the eastern section of our city on the A605, and it just wouldn't have happened. It's been spoken about for years, this particular project, but it wouldn't have happened without the combined authorities formation under your leadership, Mr. Mayor, and we're very grateful for that as a city. As are, I have to say, the local ward councillors, Councillor Harper, Councillor Isby and Councillor Rush, who've kept their residents fully informed in the areas that surround that particular pinch point, Cardia and Park Farm developments especially, and stand ground more generally. So I do urge members to continue to support. I appreciate it's just for noting progress, but to continue to support this very, very important project in Peterborough City. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hiller. Councillor Seaton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I can only fully support what Councillor Hillier has said. Colleagues may not know, but last week the Kingsdyke gates were jammed, and that, coupled with the serious flooding by the Dog and Doublet, meant that the traffic was backed up as far as Easttree. So, this has been many years in planning, well, in being talked about, not necessarily planning, but as Councillor Hillier said, it is because of the CPCA that we are now seeing extremely good progress on this, and it is very encouraging. I will, of course, put in my normal plea that this is one part of what we would like to do with Whittlesea. The second part, of course, is the relief road, which can only enhance what we're doing with the rail. So fully support this. I know it's for note, but very pleased to see the progress being made. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Seaton. It is appropriate that we move from this the next stage, which would be looking at the potential for a relief road for Whittlesea. It's a growing town, and more than that, it's also, as Councillor Hiller and yourself mentioned, it is an important route into the city of Peterborough as well. Councillor Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was very fortunate alongside Councillor Ian Bates, who was the chairman of the County Council's Transport and Highway Committee, to visit the site, to have a look around, to see the work that's been done. And if it is at all possible for anyone else here to do that, I highly recommend it. They're absolutely excellent. They explained it all one thing or another, and I felt quite at home because Councillor Bates was the only Englishman on site. Everybody else was Welsh. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Okay, we have no further speakers, so this is for noting. But it does ask for a vote, so we'll need a proposer and a seconder.
Happy to propose, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Hiller proposed and Councillor Seaton to second. Again, nobody's spoken against. It is a fantastic project in partnership with the County Council, of course, so we will take that as unanimous. And we move on to a very important item, I believe, which is 2.9, the buses strategy update. And I will first of all move to a question from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which the Democratic Services Officer will read out. Daniel, I believe you're poised to go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The question is as follows. Given the COVID pandemic and a subsequent reduction in bus usage, how will it come from the DRT trial? Paragraph 2.9 of the report states that negotiations with a range of DRT providers is ongoing, and a briefing of the DRT plan will be provided at committee. Could a copy of that plan be provided to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee?
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. So as a response to that, work has been taking place to procure a trial state-of-the-art demand responsive transport service in West Huntingdonshire. The work needed to do this is proceeding well, but clearly we need to understand the tier restrictions brought on by COVID-19 in order to select the optimum time to commence delivery. In this trial, we'll be looking carefully at passenger numbers for the DRT service compared to existing bus services in the area, which will continue as a benchmark. We have the data for passengers on these services in 2019 and 2020, and also have county-wide data for each period. And this will enable us to extrapolate the impact of DRT on the underlying best bus network. In addition, we wish to do some on-bus survey work of passengers to establish qualitative views of the new service. The data gathered within the trial will be comparable with data currently provided for by existing bus services and comparison made against pre-COVID and COVID passenger numbers. We have details of how many passengers travelled on buses in West Huntingdonshire in 2019 and 2020, and for all services in the CPCA area. Hence, we are able to calculate the expected downturn in passenger numbers due to COVID and whether numbers are improved by the DRT services' greater availability and connectivity. However, there are genuine concerns about the messaging from central government. The messaging in relation to the safety of bus transport will be critical in determining the optimum time to commence the trial, and dedicated PR and marketing will be in place. Very clearly, this is not a moment when we can say that the trial can safely be launched. In terms of the plan being shared with the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, officers will work with democratic services. At present, the plan remains to deploy 4 to 6 small buses and minibuses on a network running 6 days a week, serving West Huntingdonshire within an area defined by the county boundary west of St Neots, the A428 from St Neots to Clacton Gibbet, the A1198 from there towards the A14 A1M up to Sawtry, and then round the county boundary to near Thrapston. Maps have been prepared for this entire area. All roads have been driven and suitably assessed, and all the DRT pickup zones have been recorded in line with Traffic Commissioner requirements. The tender is ready to send out, and we await a significant downturn in the virulence of the virus to allow tendering to formally commence. The budget for this trial will carry forward with the service to commence as soon as possible. With that finished, we will go to back to Oliver, who will take us through the report. But just before Oliver begins, and I know that members of the press are on this Zoom call. This morning I was on Radio Cambridgeshire to discuss the agenda on Transport Committee today, and obviously how varied it is, but it was the demand responsive transport trial was described as dial-a-ride, and I think we need to make there's a significant difference between demand responsive transport and dial-a-ride, which Oliver, I'm sure, as part of his report will bring forward. But if we get it right, demand responsive transport has the opportunity, has the ability, I believe, to transform the way that we use buses in rural areas in our county, and that's something that's been a challenge for multiple years, as we well know. Oliver, just before you begin, Councillor Massey has put her hand up. Councillor Massey, is that?
I'll wait.
You'll wait. Okay. Oliver, the floor is yours. Oliver, unfortunately, we can't hear you.
Right.
We've all been there.
I believe that I'm unmuted.
You are now.
Good, right, thank you. Right. Thank you, everybody, and good morning. So the background, basically, the work on the bus reform projects commenced in 2019. It's been severely impacted by the COVID virus, because a key part of this work has been the preparation of a business case under the Buses Act 2017, proposing alternative ways of commissioning subsidised bus services. We work to model the impact of moving to a partnership or a franchise model has necessarily been delayed as we seek to understand what those impacts are. The Mayor has discussed the developing situation with Baroness Vere, the Buses Minister, and continues to do so. Officers from the authority are in discussion with senior officers of the Department for Transport. The government is aiming to publish a national bus strategy soon and to provide clarity about the future of the emergency public subsidy provided to the bus industry and any transitional recovery funding. The combined authority has been able to conclude its work on the new delivery model, will be able, sorry, to conclude its work on new delivery models when those national policy decisions have been made. In the meantime, the combined authorities agreed to progress several new projects, including trials which will inform and improve our public transport network in the future. The first of these is a new bus service in Peterborough. The committee agreed in November to proceed with the new transported bus service, linking demand generators on the west side of Peterborough. That has since been tendered, and that will start running in late February. So that will establish whether there's demand for on-orbital bus service compared to high-frequency radio links into and out of the city centre. Next, a new bus service in Fenland and Huntingdonshire. The Mayor, after consulting, has decided to tender a second new trial bus service giving direct links from March to Wilmington, Doddington, Chatteris and Warboys to St Ives. This will support an area that is significantly underserved by public transport and faces linked issues of deprivation. And through ticketing with the busway will provide an express link into Cambridge and onwards to Addenbrooke's. We have received representations about the need for a later journey, and I can assure members that we have now commissioned an extra journey back from Cambridge that allows people to spend more time at Addenbrooke's. Separately, the authority are in discussions with Stagecoach to ensure that northbound buses of theirs from Addenbrooke's, which will connect to St Ives with this bi-hourly new route, will display the connection on the front of their vehicles. This new trial service will serve 39,000 people. Is being launched to better understand how we can maximise the benefits of the guided busway in several communities in the north of the region. Moving on to demand responsive transport, you've just heard quite a lot about it from the Mayor. The authority is exploring a range of ways to explore and commission the latest forms of DRT. We've been in negotiation with a range of DRT providers at the time of drafting this paper. The intention at that stage was to go live in early 2021. As the Mayor has said, this may not be the ideal moment to be doing this. And we are still considering what we will do about that. The DRT service will cover most of West Huntingdonshire, as described on the paper in front of you. And it only contains one commercial bus service and 2 minimum subsidy bus services, with most bus services being subsidised on a minimum cost basis. And that is very useful in allowing the introduction of the DR scheme to be introduced without directly damaging the existing bus network. People will require payments to make payments to travel or prefer a valid concessionary bus pass. Fares will be collected mainly online by booking a bus journey via a smartphone app. However, it will also be possible to book by telephone and pay on the vehicle. To be successful, we believe this service needs to be run by a mix of small and medium-sized vehicles, which we seen to be buses and not dial-a-ride vehicles. Certain roads and hamlets cannot be served due to the narrow width of the lanes and the absence of accessible turnaround points or unsafe road junctions for bus use. However, officers have surveyed every lane in the area to maximise coverage. Your authority will run this trial service for 6 months, and following this, will consider extending the service through a new tendering round or reverting to the existing bus services, which will continue throughout the trial. Item G on the paper has just been covered by what's been read out by the Mayor. Ticket machines, members will be aware that we would like to standardise through ticketing and real-time data for public transport systems by standardising on one of the 2 main electronic ticket machine types for all operators, including the small operators, and renting some of these ticket machines out to small operators so that they can provide similar levels of data to the large operators. And that will allow better performance management and the evaluation of value for money and better route planning. And I commend the paper to the members.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Councillor Massey, you've been waiting a long while, so I'll bring you in.
Thank you. I knew my door was about to go. Hang on, I'm just... Sorry. Thank you so much for the report. And I think it's really important that I would like to add that we shouldn't undermine the importance of dial-a-ride services. They are really, really valid services that help disability and elderly people go out and go shopping. They often, in fact, are able to drive through restricted areas to drop those people off so that they can go shopping. I think it's really important that we fully support dial-a-ride services and that we continue to fund them as much as possible, because I do know that dial-a-ride Cambridge is suffering right now and we could do with the extra support. In regard to the partnership and franchise buses, and you have mentioned it's been delayed due to the pandemic, I would urge that work is to continue, just to go forward, to see where we go, because we've been waiting a long time to see the outcome of whether or not we're going to go with the partnership or franchise model. And that is going to be a really, really important part of the transport network post the pandemic. I do agree, however, it is right to currently put a pause on the other services, just because we know that right now we're in a lockdown. We're not entirely sure where it's going to end. We're not entirely sure where we're going to be even this time winter this year. So I think putting a pause on that and looking at maybe 2022 might be the better option in regards to improving some of the bus networks, just because we're not too sure what's going to happen next, as has been evident this year, because I don't think anybody had a new virus strain on their bingo card, but yet here we are. So to sum up, I would urge that we continue with the partnership franchise work, because that is going to be important with the outcome of the bus network post-COVID. And I agree that we need to pause and reevaluate when is the best time to launch the other services, because of the fact that people won't be on public transport or moving around anymore.
Okay, thank you. Just to let you know, Councillor Massey, the Combined Authority Business Board did fund 150,000 pounds of funding through the Capital Grant Scheme into Cambridge Dial-A-Ride. I visited them a fortnight ago, and we're going to try and help them through that funding deliver the first electric buses into their service. So I just wanted to make sure that people were aware that there was no confusion between service that Dial-A-Ride offer, which is clearly a very bespoke and outstanding service, and demand responsive transport, which is a separate and different thing. And I think that's clear to have that there is a clear dividing line, but there is no doubt at all about our support for Dial-A-Ride services across the county. And as I said, financially, we are engaged in that. Councillor Seaton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, very supportive of this paper in general, but a comment on the trial bus service from through Fenland to Huntingdonshire. I'm really pleased that Oliver said that you were re-looking at the latest time to come back from Addenbrooke's, because I think on the original information, I think it was 1400 hours. I may or may not be wrong on that, but certainly that was too early, I felt, and I'm really pleased that is being reassessed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mish.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, like Councillor Seaton, very supportive of this. The one question I have is 2.6 is a really useful link. I don't know whether we could squeeze Ramsey into that. Depends which way it takes. Ramsey seems to get left out of most things, and it'd be wrong of me not to mention Ramsey, because most people think it's in a different district. Not myself. And onto the DRT one, again, really interesting, and I really hope it works out, because it has the potential of being a really useful service. I don't fully understand how it will work when you ring one up, but the areas you're capturing there are far and wide, and as you mentioned, and was mentioned by Oliver, areas that are very poorly covered at present. Lucky if they get one bus a week or a month maybe. That's probably not being too fair on the bus companies, but I get really supportive. Hope it works through, and again, support it all the way through. My other concern is, like we've all had, is that it's very difficult to do a trial with some unknowns in there, but at some stage you've just got to crack on with it and do them. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Councillor Vish. And it is difficult, although we've found with the bus route that we launched, obviously through St Neots and Camborne and into Addenbrooke's, it's been very, very successful. So there are people who still need to travel, obviously, as we're fully aware, key workers, etc. And where we've had that particular new bus route, it has been very successful. So we mustn't be afraid, I believe, of putting forward new bus services, even in a pandemic. There are no further speakers, so we move to the recommendations. And do we have a proposer, please? Councillor Nish, and a seconder, Councillor Seaton. Again, nobody has spoken directly against this, so I assume we're all happy to support unanimously, and I appreciate the members for that. We move on to item 2.10, which is station update, and we are going to Roland to brief us on this. Oh, actually, it is Roland. Apologies, I wasn't sure it was you or Mehmet, but it is you.
Yeah, it is me, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members. This is again an update paper on progress of the construction phase of Soham Station. Members here will all be aware of the importance of Soham Railway Station within our portfolio of projects. Soham has been without a rail connection for almost 55 years, and this project reinstates the station at Soham, providing a direct link to Ely to the west and Ipswich to the east, and brings sustainable transport benefits to this growing market town, supporting economic and housing growth. The project continues to have significant public and partner support, and the construction phase commenced in September of 2020 and has progressed very well. There was some early track works on the weekend of the 22nd and 23rd of August 2020, with a series of weekend and overnight works clearing the track sides in preparation for these future works. There has been clearing of vegetation and hard standing areas created for the storage of materials, parking for construction staff, site offices and welfare units, which are all now in operation. Great crested newts had been found on site and newly established habitats created, and the translocation of these newts has been made in the appropriate manners and vegetation treated accordingly. The programme is, as I say, progressing well and is due to complete in October of this year, with the station being opened in December of this year, which is 5 months earlier than the programme when we entered into the construction phase, but is still a significant acceleration on where this project was likely to turn out in sort of 22-23. The mayor with others visited the site in December to see the progress firsthand, and as I say, it's going well. It's going to programme. The Network Rail team and the contractors are working well, and I commend the report to the committee.
Thank you very much, Roland. Any comments on that report? No. Okay. So thank you. I'd like to thank Roland and his team. It is for noting. Perhaps Robert, do I have to go for a vote on that, or is it just that can be noted?
General consensus, Mayor. Then need not do the formality of a vote.
Thank you very much. So as nobody's spoken against, I'm very, very pleased to say that there's general consensus, and thank Roland and his team for the work that they have done on that scheme. So we move on to the date of the next meeting, which is Wednesday, the 10th of March, 2021. Moving very quickly, I'm sure. Just to let the members of the committee know that I'm meeting Baroness Vere this afternoon at 4 o'clock to discuss buses, the A10 and the A47 in particular. And of course, anything that comes out of that meeting that is necessary to update the committee with, then we will do so. Councillor Seaton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know it's been a long meeting, so I won't try and lengthen it anymore. Perhaps we could just have a written update on where we stand with the A47 dualling. I know this is a hobby horse of mine, and I'm sure I will bore people to death with it. But you know, it is important for not just for Fenland, but I think for the whole of the combined authority. And I know we've had disappointments with the RIS1, not on RIS2, but I just wondered, I want to keep it on the radar and not let it slip away. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and it is right that it's a hobby horse of yours. It's an appalling road that needs upgrading. And as I said, I will be mentioning it to the Minister this afternoon, and I will let you know of any updates that we have. Councillor Hibber.
Could I just second Councillor Seaton's comments, Mr. Mayor, about the A47? Patently, it sort of bisects most of the Peterborough area, so it's very, very important from our point of view as a local authority. And any updates or any mentions you can make to the Baroness would be most welcome. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Certainly, and I think the other point on this is not just that upgrading the road would be beneficial to the northern part of Cambridgeshire. There's no doubt that it would, But the road is going to have to be dug up anyway to improve the flood defences in that area. It's going to cost around 300 million to dig it up and replace it as it is. With our proposal for a northern solution coming just north of Wisbeach, including sluice gates at Sutton Bridge, we're not only be able to create wetland that will be environmentally beneficial to wading birds, but also control the river levels in Wisbeach and in March, allow for leisure boating. The opportunities that dualling this road have beyond just improved transport links are significant, and that's their points that I will be making to the Minister today.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, members, and I will look forward to seeing you further on the 10th of March. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Right.